Hey everybody, John Griffith here, the self-storage guy. It occurred to me that in some of my other videos, I've kind of taken for granted the fact that I am a self-storage investor, and I thought I might answer the question of why is self-storage a good investment? There's many other things you could do in terms of real estate. Many of you that do invest in real estate, you may do houses, you may do mobile homes, you may do multifamily properties, you may do duplexes, quadruplexes, apartment complexes, those things like that. But really, I think if I could boil it down to, there's many reasons, but maybe three reasons why I do self-storage and why I think it's a great investment. Number one is that there's maximum cash flow. So cash flow, that's a good thing, right? Now, I'm not talking about passive income. I think I have a video where I give my opinion about passive income. But I would say maximum cash flow. Historically, self-storage properties are fairly low in expenses. So you can expect an income, maybe an expense to income ratio of about 35%. So that means 35%, 40% possibly of your effective gross income goes towards expenses. If you're in other categories of real estate, you may expect 50, 60, maybe higher. But self-storage is a fairly simple business model, and so there's just not that much. There's not as many repairs. There's not as many things that you have to worry about with some of these other traditional types of property. So there's maximum cash flow. That's one of the reasons it's so great. Another reason I would say is that the laws around self-storage are much more in favor of the owner instead of the tenant. I don't have to tell many of you out there who have residential property or multifamily property about a lot of times the laws for the landlord-tenant relationship are more so in favor of the tenant and not the landlord. And self-storage is not so. Self-storage, a lot of the laws are specific to the state, and they're typically laws around statutory liens on personal property. So we'll do another video on those, but it's safe to say that at a high level, the laws are very much more in the favor of the self-storage owner. So good example, again, this is all depending on your state, but if someone gets to a certain point in a delinquency schedule, let's say they're 5 days late, 10 days late, 15 days late, whatever the case may be, I can slap a lock on the unit, I can deny them access, and the lock doesn't come off until they pay me in full. You can't do that on a house. When someone's delinquent with their rent, you cannot go slap a lock on the front door and say you can't come into the house until you pay me. You'll probably go to jail. That's just the reality of it. So with a house, a tenant can basically take your house, they can wreck it, just turning into a steaming pile, and hand it back to you, and it's wrecked. With a self-storage unit, there's nothing really to wreck. It's a concrete box with steel walls. What are they going to do? And I have complete control, complete access. And if you get to, depending on your state, 45 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever the case may be, you go to the auction process, and they're out. And instead of having a wrecked house, having to take someone to court, go through that big long months, possibly years, I've heard horror stories about that. They're out in 60 to 90 days tops, and again, it's a concrete box and a steel floor. So what do? You take a leaf blower, blow it out, and you move in the next paying customer. So again, we'll go more into the lien process and how that works, what steps you should go through, and how that differs per state. I'll cover that in another video, but it's safe to say that the laws are much, much simpler when somebody's not living there. Because again, people are not living in the property, right? Right? They shouldn't be. So we've got maximum cash flow, very low expense to income ratio. We've got the self-storage laws are much more in favor of the owner versus the tenant. And I think really the next thing is just there's a lot less risk involved with that type of thing. Again, this is, if you have a multifamily property, you have experienced some of this, but it's even better with self-storage because, again, nobody's living there, right? So I don't just have one person living in a house, and then if that person happens to move out, well, that's 100% of the income from that house. And especially if I have a mortgage, I might be losing a little sleep until I can get someone back in that property. With self-storage, I have hundreds of customers. So people move in, out all the time. It ebbs and it flows, but So I'm spreading my risk across many different rental increments, if you will. So the odds that someone's going to one day or hundreds of people are all going to decide one day to get up and move out. It's just not going to happen. It just doesn't happen. Could it happen? Yeah, it could happen, just like you could get hit by a comet, but probably not. So again, I would like to get into some of these things more in detail in further videos, but at high level, it just occurred to me that, well, why self-storage? Why don't I do something else? Why not mobile homes? Why not apartments? Why not single family and all these other types of things? Well, it really comes down to that. It comes down to maximum cash flow, really with minimal effort. It comes down to the self-storage laws are more in favor of the owner of the property instead of the tenant with a lot of the residential type properties. And you're minimizing your risk because it's a multi-tenant / multi-customer type of investment, so your risk is spread out. And then also because some of these other things we talked about with the laws, that's also minimizing risk as well. So I hope this has been helpful. Just doing a quick little video here tonight from the homestead, as you can see from the background. So again, if you have any questions, further things, other videos you'd like to see on these topics, just leave them in the comments. Do click subscribe. Click the notification button because you're not always going to get the videos unless you click the notification button. And just let me know what you want to hear about. And so I'm going to go into further details about the delinquency procedures and different things we should be doing to make sure we are minimizing our risk. But I hope this has been really informative for you guys. And have a great night.